I think the first question that we asked ourselves is that, what is really going to set Pestle and Mortar Clothing apart from the million of other clothing lines out there, right? So we said, why don't we talk about our identity? Why don't we talk about who we are? Why don't we talk about stories from the region? And this is how the USP of the brand came about.
Kita sebenarnya setara dunia dah, saya rasa. Tak payah nak malu-malu. Buat apa nak malu-malu pun. Sebab barangan buatan Malaysia memang nilai dia memang sangat tinggi, especially traditional art.
For us, in terms just to take you through the process, how it starts would be we always think about like a main overarching theme. And I think a lot of these ideas, whether it be the KL, whether it be a city reverse series, whether it be about iconic food, or even our recent collection, Nostalgia, which spoke about all those bowling shirts, right? So it always starts with like an idea. And I think ideas always come about when you're doing the most random of things. I can be driving a car and then you suddenly see something and you go like, okay. Ideas always come to you when you're just doing random things. And even even here today, I might see something that somewhat sparks something in my head, and that might spark the collection. Yo, Jack, come a second. Back in the day, I mean, the process back then and right now, I think it's still similar. But obviously, we have a team right now to do it. Back then it was only me, Arthur, and Arnold. So all of us, actually even today, all of us have to wear many different hats. Yeah, so right now we're actually going through the design process, a process that we normally go through. Always somewhat starts from the ideation, right, Jack? So then we come up with a theme. And then I present it to the guys and say, okay, this is the theme that I'm thinking about. What are your thoughts? Just a little bit bigger. We're talking only about like 2 centimeter difference, right? Okay. So this kind of thing, like 11 by 9. 11 by 9. Maybe we can try that out. We can see how it is. Similar to that kind of stuff. Yeah, we can do that. It kind of looks like this.
This one looks a lot bigger as compared.
In this particular case is obviously, the name of the collection is actually focused around nostalgia. So from the ideation stage, when we're thinking about it, it's not only me or Jack which come up with the ideas, but the entire office actually gets involved. And then everyone chips in with their ideas, and we might have maybe 50 different options for us to try out. So even for over here as well. So we're looking at all these, how many designs do we have altogether?
We have a total of 8.
Okay. And then maybe just take us through all of it. So from the first one,
Yeah,
where does the idea actually come from for that one?
Well, the first one is definitely we're playing around with the idea of.
So everyone then gives feedback, and then we come up, if everyone agrees to it, then we might come up with like different keywords, different imagery that we're looking at. And then after that, then that's where we actually start designing around. In this particular case, we're actually creating these type of bowling shirts. And the idea here was, to ideate graphics to actually put on these type of silhouettes. This one is actually called Nostalgia, and the whole idea is that we wanted to create or have a design that talks about that nostalgia element, being from Malaysia, and where you see things and you suddenly go like, oh wow, that's Malaysian, or I've seen that before. We want to be that brand that that people can call their own. Even though, me and the founders started Pestle and Mortar Clothing, but the idea here is to actually build Pestle and Mortar Clothing to be a Malaysian brand, where Malaysians can actually call their own. That is always our dream. Obviously, still a lot more uphill challenges to work towards, but that has always been like the mantra or like the vision of the company. think growing up in Malaysia when I was much younger, we always assumed that Malaysian products are always of lower quality, of lower standard. But I think that landscape has changed, and I think, you know, when the time that pastel model clothing came out in 2010, that was really when a lot more of the younger people actually was rallying around the whole Malaysian brand or Malaysian pride. And I think for me, even at that period of time as well, taking a lot more interest in our country and our identity and what makes us special. And the thing is that Malaysia is so special in so many ways. I have so many of my friends which come to Malaysia. There's only so many places, there's so many different types of food, you know, different cultures, different religion, different practices. So I think that's really nice, and that's something that we really want to sort of expose to the world. We've always been, you know, celebrating our culture, heritage and identity. And the way that we do it is we actually do it through our apparel. So it normally starts off, you know, through us talking about it, you know, we discuss it, and then we pretty much go into like the sketch phases. I used to be more involved in the creative process just because I was the only one which had some drawing skills. You know, Arnold and Arthur, both of them could not draw for nuts. When we first started the brand itself is what really sets us apart. So even though we are a clothing company, we like to think of it as, you know, we are a storytelling company. And all these clothes that we actually make is just purely just our canvas. So we're somewhat like artists, and we just create our art onto apparel. So that's the kind of things that we actually want to spark.
I'm just gonna pull it here.
Yep.
And from there, I'm just gonna organize them one by one.
Then maybe that one, you can just move it to the other side. Some of it can be straight as well, you know, we can just play around with it. Just a little bit more random. Yeah, so you know how we were saying like this thing at the moment is like grid, right? See if we can just somewhat like, you know, spread them out a little bit more. Eva, what do you think of this? It's okay? Should we change it this way instead? Yeah, like so much better, right? This one? I don't know who was the first one which actually did it. When I was in Langkawi, a friend texted me and said, "Hey Hugh, you know, this idea didn't come from me, but it came from a friend." He said, "Hey, at the moment they're trying to sell the yacht, the Equanimity, you know, that yacht, right? And it was, you know, so expensive, it was so crazy, and it was big news in the media. So we say, hey, let's just do a design lah, you know, around, let's just do the yacht. We put like for sale, hubungi nombor ini, and you know, from ideation to design or ideation to manufacturing, we just did it really quick in 1 week. While the topic was still really hot, and we just sold out like over the next like 2-3 days. When people saw it, you know, because it was hot in the news and people could resonate with that. Yeah. So they're like, oh, okay, you know, I'm gonna buy that. So in this particular case, right, the idea here is that it's paying homage to certain drinks that, you know, we grew up with. So what we hope to be able to do is that when people, you know, look at the clothes and they see some of these different icons, it reminds them of like their childhood, reminds them of like certain memories, maybe during Chinese New Year, which is something, you know, for myself, I'm sure many of the other guys around as well, you know, what we used to drink. So that's always the concept behind it. So I think the story of pastel model clothing goes as far back as more than 10 years. You know, the brand's been around for 10 years, but I think the ideology of starting a clothing line actually started when I was about 16 years old. I think at that point of time, like, the stuff which we enjoyed, our interest revolved around like a lot of like music. So whether it be during that era was like Blink 182, you know, I think that was the first time when we said, wow, this is amazing, it's going to be so exciting, so cool if we can actually start our own clothing line. Fast forward 2010, At that period of time, I just graduated. I was working in Australia. Arnold, one of the other partners as well, was just got back from Melbourne and was working in media. And then his younger brother as well was, I think, still in college. Arthur was still in college. So it was just one day over the mamak session. We were just minum, lepak. And then after we said, hey, why don't we actually start this clothing line? We're thinking about doing something, just a little bit more of a side hustle. Let's try it out. And I think the first question that we asked ourselves is that, what is really going to set Pastel Moda Clothing apart from the million of other clothing lines out there, right? So we said, why don't we talk about our identity? Why don't we talk about who we are? Why don't we talk about stories from the region? And this is how the USP of the brand came about.
I ada a few things lah. Whenever design, I want to talk about Malaysia, and then I mesti ada unsur nature, and I love this concept macam I suka happiness, because I feel that after 10 years of living in Terengganu and I've seen how other batik makers, I'm sure that all have a different way of making batiks. When I'm designing one collection, I always go back to what do I want to do for that collection, or what is macam can I inspire tak orang this time, because I've done a few collections dah. So especially this year 2020, it's the tema is actually mindfulness of the art, which means apa kita punya perception, how do we this one get inspired by. So I created motifs, this like macam contohnya this year, motifs that do not really exist dekat kita punya pandangan, because before this I was taking plant based punya design, so I want to run away from that but still keep that some unsur-unsur tu. So what I did was macam create motifs yang a little bit more unique. A lot of things actually. I'm inspired by neems, I'm inspired by flowers memang, because I love flowers and nature, because everything is in my backyard. So anything that I find macam, or I just pluck a leaf ke macam tu, that's how I'm inspired by all those things. A lot of it is from nature. So daripada situ, I translate it into paper. A good design is a design yang you catered everything lah. Semua bab you know, you thought about the lighting of the house, or you thought about what people would do with that design ke, macam function dia, macam if it's a kitchen, you know, macam okay, where's the sink, you know, you think about all that detailing. And then I think if that design has a certain macam soul to it, that one is memang like a bonus lah. That means when I say soul, maksudnya the other person or somebody that saw your design tu, dia macam they felt the same way as you, macam itu tercapai lah I rasa, because the design tak mati. Sometimes I will find difficulty dari segi dia, especially full block, meaning full pattern batik, dia full block, because when you block full printed patterns or motifs, you have to make sure that you cannot really see where it is connected. Some motifs doesn't really work, some okay. So kita tengok depend on the design lah. Selalunya my design akan ditentukan oleh the block maker. So I have to imagine that. So I have to see what's the best, and my artisan must also understand I want that perfectly done, not so perfect but almost perfect. So how to create that? But I will always push lah, macam I want my design to be as close as possible with his artwork of block making tu. Bila kita buat batik ni, especially block making, when it comes to batik terap, not the same with canting lah. How you position the motifs, it must be relevant to the artisan. So all my designs over the years, it has evolved, I would say. This year, like for instance, like macam batik alam ni I'm holding, a bit rumit sikit yang ni, sebab when I was doing it, I was sketching on butter paper banyak sangat, but it was so hard for me to get the right position, because I must remember at the end of the day it's a full printed block, and I wanted to artisan tu faham, tahu macam mana nak refer to bila dia place the print on the cloth tu without looking. That's the problem with hand blocking. When you're doing the work, you cannot see. Jadi it's always the eyesight that is important. Tekan sikit, katok sikit. This is the process where they would dye dengan sponge. So ni the proses tengah kering. Kita dah usually kita hand print belah pagi kan. So belah sebelum pukul 12 tu kira it should be dry lah by then. 1 to 2 hours on a very good day. So now he's checking the batik. If there's any error, and then he will remove some excess gel from there, and then we're going to put it inside here, and then he's going to wash it. So this is the first wash. First wash ni dia ada dia punya gel tu dalam air ni. This is macam critical lagi sebab dia masih ada gel ni atas kain tu, and he has to check all the parts. This is when it's wet. It looks like this. Bila dia dah kering, dia nampak lain. Sebab dia nanti the wax all remove kan. Okay, now we're going to boil by hand. I think people think that batik ni is flowery, colourful like that. But I do have batik classes kan, and I always tell my students that okay, batik is not what you... I always tell them this. Batik is not what you see on Google. It does not mean that it's colourful, and it doesn't mean that it's flowery. I always say and I always push that batik ni is a traditional art that uses wax, hot wax and dye, and dia mesti go through boiling method. So this is a small pot. Kalau big pot dia nak lagi lah kuat. And this is soda ash. It actually helps to remove the wax. So now he's going to dip inside, and ni the wax should melt a bit. So you see the colour macam yellowy, that one the wax tengah turun lah. And you can see now the batik, the lines are becoming more white. So they dip this a few times lah. You really have to know when it's done. He's going to the first water. Okay, this is a happy batik. Dia dah habis basuh, dia tak ada dah lilin, dah tak ada, dah remove. It doesn't look so bad. Yang ni Ni kita nak buat face mask. The print is big, but we wanted a modern look for the face mask. So it's gonna have like petals, big petals. It won't look like flowery mask, but it's gonna have that petal look. Sebab kita buat handmade, memang kena banyak planning lah, much earlier. So when somebody place an order, we have to make them imagine, okay, our process is gonna be like this. We always say it takes time to make batik.
I think all of us have a lot of love for our country, and I think that's something that is sort of really close to my heart, and a lot of the other guys in the office as well, and the partners. So you know, we try to educate through our platform, because at the end of the day we have a community. So how do we utilize this community to be able to spread what we believe in? So I think it's important to keep an open mind, to always go out there and seize the moment. When you have the opportunity in front of you, make sure you go for it. And I think that is where you actually see the benefit, or you really reap the positives from all these actions.
I think we stand a chance. Memang local product ni memang boleh membangun sangat lah. Kita sebenarnya setaraf dunia dah, saya rasa. Tak payah nak malu-malu. Buat apa nak malu-malu pun. Sebab barangan buatan Malaysia memang nilai dia memang sangat tinggi, especially traditional art. I don't see the gap. I don't see that. Because I feel that it's proven already, people that come, they say that our local products, especially what we do lah, dan traditional batik making ni memang setaraf dunia dah. Mustn't take it for granted what kesenian yang kita ada dekat Malaysia ni. Because if you take it for granted, dia memang tak ada.